Hello. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. I am Charity Emerunye Swift of St. Luke's Church. We have a video for you. With this video, we want to send a message of love to all of you who are suffering because of the pandemic. Please donate to the Coronavirus Fund for South Fairfax County to help local communities that have been hard hit by the pandemic. Thank you very much.
What's that I hear now ringing in my ear? I've heard that sound before. What's that I hear now ringing in my ear? I hear it more and more. It's the sound of freedom calling, ringing up to the sky. It's the sound of always a calling. You can hear it if you try. You can hear it if you try. What's that I see now shining in my eyes? I've seen that light before. What's that I see now shining in my eyes? I see it more and more and more. It's the light of freedom shining, shining up to the sky. It's the light of new ways of calling. You can see it if you try. You can hear it if you try.
Hey, Tom, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. But tell me, why are you in a box?
You're in a box too.
Wow, you're right. You know, I've noticed a whole lot of people are in boxes these days.
Well, you know why? It's COVID-19.
Mm.
People don't want to get sick and maybe die by being exposed to folks face to face.
Well, that reminds me, we have a telethon to do, just like Pledge Week. Are operators standing by?
Well, it's not that kind of telethon with lots of ringing phones.
Well, then how are people going to give money for COVID relief along the Route 1 corridor? You know, lots of our neighbors are suffering.
Well, we could use this QR code to make it easy to make a donation.
All folks have to do is point their smartphones at the image and they'll go right to our donation page.
Yeah, and then folks just need to click on community outreach and then on the memo line, COVID relief.
That way, their donations will go straight into our COVID Relief Fund, with all proceeds being divided between Rising Hope Mission Church, Alice's Kids, and Neighborhood Health for local efforts to help our neighbors in need along Richmond Highway.
Also, folks can do the old-fashioned thing by mailing a check to St. Luke's Episcopal Church, 8009 Fort Hunt Road, Alexandria, Virginia, 22308. Please write COVID relief on the memo line so that your money goes to that special fund.
Is that St. Luke's Episcopal Church at 8009 Fort Hunt Road, Alexandria 22308? Wow, that is easy. But Tom, I miss all those ringing telephones.
Oh well, technology marches on. We will repeat the QR code throughout this video so that folks have plenty of opportunities to give.
Good deal. Now on with the show. Bring on the dancing girls.
Dancing girls, cool.
Hello, my name is Rodney Lusk and I'm the lead district supervisor, and I'm here to tell you why Valentine's Day is so important to me. Last year, we were very fortunate to have one of our local companies make a very significant contribution on Valentine's Day. He committed to provide 30,000 eggs to our broader community and specifically to those in the Richmond Highway corridor. We partnered with United Community to help distribute those eggs, and I'll say, when you see 30,000 eggs, you think that's a lot of eggs, and we ended up handing out pretty much all of those eggs during the session that we had on February 14th. So again, Daloon Corp was the sponsor of that event. They've also been pivotal in helping us with our food distribution program, which we've been running since May of this past year. We've been able to provide food for over 38,000 families, and we've been able to provide over 1 million pounds of food. What's important here is that Daloon applied for a USDA contract. They won that contract. They were the only vendor in the Commonwealth of Virginia to be able to do that. And what is significant is they were able to provide a significant amount of that food to our neighbors here in the Mount Vernon and Lee areas. The South County Government Center was a place that we hosted many of those distributions. And again, it's so important that we do things to support those who've been adversely impacted by COVID. COVID-19 has had a tremendous impact in our community. When we think about a number of the conditions for those who live along the Richmond Highway corridor, they've had significant issues over time. But as we moved into COVID-19, we've seen the major impacts in terms of loss of jobs, food insecurity, difficulty paying rent, difficulty paying any other expenses. It has been devastating for those who are Hispanic and African American as we look at the county overall. We have been focused on doing everything we can to alleviate some of that pain. And it is so important that the neighbors in our community step up, because we know that there's a need for food in all of our food pantries, our food banks. Many of them cannot provide the level of food that is needed by the residents in this area. Specifically, when we've done our food distributions, we've noticed that we have car lines in excess of 1.5 miles, 2 miles in length. We have not been able to provide food to every person in those car lines. It's difficult when we get to the end of the line and we've run out of, it's difficult when we get to the end of our food distribution and we have cars that are still waiting to pick up food. You, as a person in the community, can make a difference. You can help, providing a donation, helping those food banks, helping those ecumenical groups with funding is going to be pivotal and important to making sure we address this food insecurity in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dawn, and today we are going to make raspberry ribbon pie. So this is a recipe that my mom and my grandma found in the 1970s, and they made it for Christmas that year, and it was a hit. So I wanted to share it with you. It's a very pretty pie. It has red and white layers, so it's great for Valentine's Day, for 4th of July, for Christmas, any time of the year that you want to serve it. So let's get started. First, you're going to need a baked and cooled pie crust. Next, we're going to make 2 fillings. We're going to make a red raspberry filling, and we're going to make a white whipped cream and cream cheese filling. So let's get started on the red filling. You are going to take a 1/4 cup of sugar and 3-ounce package of raspberry jello. You're going to dissolve the jello and the sugar in a 1.25 cups of boiling water. So mix that together so that the jello and the sugar are completely dissolved. To that, you're going to add a teaspoon of lemon juice, and you're going to add 10 ounces of frozen raspberries. This is a 12-ounce bag. I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm just not going to pour all of that in. So you want to stir this until the raspberries just begin to soften a little bit. Okay, so after that is combined, we're going to pop it in the fridge. We need this to partially set. It'll take about 30 minutes to an hour. Next, we're going to get started on the white layer. So I have a cup of cream that I've already whipped up. I have 3 ounces of cream cheese, and in that I've mixed 1/3 cup of powdered sugar and a teaspoon of vanilla. Then I need to combine these 2 bowls. So I'm going to do that by adding just a little bit of the whipped cream into the cream cheese mixture. This will just thin it out a little bit and make it easier to fold into the whipped cream. So mix that gently. Now we're going to fold this cream cheese into the whipped cream. Okay, I'm going to finish that. We're going to let the jello get partially set, and then when I come back, we're going to assemble the pie. So we're going to start with half of the white mixture. We're going to spread that on the bottom of the pie pan. Then we're going to spoon on half of the red. This is still, even after an hour, it's still kind of liquidy. So we'll have to be very careful when we put the white layer on top of it so that it doesn't disturb it. And for the white layer, it's easier for me to put it in a piping bag and to put it on that way instead of spooning it on, but whatever works for you is fine. I feel like it's especially like this when the raspberry is still pretty liquidy. Try to get all those little holes, then it's going to spread very easily. And this is the spreader that I use. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to add 1 more red layer. And then we're going to pop it back in the fridge and let it continue to get completely set. And then after that, I will show you how to decorate the top. Okay, it's looking pretty. All right, back in the fridge. And lastly, I wanted to show you one way to decorate the top of the pie. You don't have to do this. It's completely optional, but I think it's pretty. What I did was I printed a graphic, a piece of clip art that I liked, and printed that out, then put a piece of parchment paper on the top, and then I melted some vanilla bark in, this is a candy making squeeze bottle. It's from Wilton. I probably got it at Michael's, but you can put it right in the microwave. And then I traced onto the parchment paper the design that's underneath, and let that cool, and then it's ready to go. Then I just need to carefully put that on top of the pie. Another thing that you could do is you can put dollops of whipped cream all around the edge of the pie, and you can put fresh raspberries on the whipped cream if you want. But this is what I did. I hope you like it. And there you have it, raspberry ribbon pie. Enjoy. Thank you. Thanks for watching.
We are Judy and Jonathan Bryan, and we have been married 60 years this year. Hard to believe. Some went slowly, some went fast. And so we're here to tell you a little bit about our relationship.
So we didn't have a whole lot of time together from the beginning to date seriously. And I was coming out of the Marine Corps, which was a time when I knew exactly how to make decisions. And so I announced to Judy as we were engaged that there would be times when the 50-50 vote would really be a deadlock. And so I would make the decision if we had. So we started off with that. And from there, it was all uphill or downhill or something, because we just had to learn what it means to collaborate. Judy has a wonderful story about how she got into that.
Well, when I was an early teenager and beginning to think about, boys and things, a boy who was a family friend and I were talking about marriage, and I had lovely ideas of romance and floating off together as a married couple to live happily ever after. And he said, I don't think it's that way. I think it's more like you get together and you put your shoulders together and you work in the same direction. And I thought, well, how dull is that? But it turns out that was good advice. And I think that the teamwork part of it is really critical. And we had to learn that aspect of it.
We had to learn a whole lot of stuff. And it took a long time to realize that it was collaboration that was making it work. Very far from the one-sided decision-making. It was working together, shoulder to shoulder. And so Judy was absolutely perfect in this because she understood how to work it out together and make do.
I learned how listening is, of course, critical in any relationship, but you also learn to bite your tongue and keep your mouth shut, whether it's responding to something and say, you what? You're kidding me. Or just saying, and getting
Oh, is that what all that meant?
Hi everyone, my name is Megan. Happy Valentine's Day and Happy New Year's. I'm going to be talking us through how to make these Valentine's Day chocolate chip roll-out cookies, all decorated. The first step is to make the cookie dough, of course. And to do that, we're going to start with 1 cup of butter softened and 1 cup of light or dark brown sugar packed, a 1/2 cup of white granulated sugar. Mix that all together so that it's all creamed and fluffy. Then as a next step, it'll be 2 whole eggs, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, and again, mix that together so that it's fluffy. Separately, we're going to mix the dry ingredients together, and that's 3.5 cups of white flour. When you're measuring out flour, make sure that you're not scooping the measuring cup directly out of the bag because it'll be too packed and you'll get too much flour. So instead, spoon it out of the bag into the measuring cup and into a bowl. So that's 3.5 cups. And 1 teaspoon of baking powder, dash of salt. Mix that together with a whisk or something so that it's all incorporated. And then we're going to gradually spoon the flour mixture into the mixing bowl with the wet ingredients, gradually, and mix that together so that it's nice and combined. Then as a last step, it's going to be 1 cup of mini semi-sweet chocolate chips, and just mix that ever so gently with a spatula or something so that you're not over mixing the mixture, but just enough to mix the chocolate chips evenly throughout. And that's your cookie dough. So next, then you're going to roll that out onto the countertop, and I've just floured the countertop a little bit so that your dough doesn't stick. And that'll be about a 1/4 inch thickness across the whole dough, and just roll that out so that it's nice and even. A 1/4 inch is just maybe to the top of your fingertip or so if you put your finger down on the counter. And then take your cookie cutters, and I have 2 hearts here, a large one and a little one, just to shake things up. Of course, you can choose any shapes to fit the event or occasion, and cut out your cookie dough here that you've rolled out. That'll go onto the prepared cookie sheet and into the oven at 375 degrees for about 7 to 9 minutes, or until it's just a little bit golden brown around the edges. Pull that out of the oven and put on a cooling rack or something like this on the counter to cool so that you're not icing it hot. And then the icing. I've made a royal icing. Royal icing is nice because it hardens well, and it's very easy. And that's just, it's 1 pound of confectioner's sugar, 3 egg whites, a 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and just a little dash of salt. And mix that up so that it's nice and smooth. You can use an electric mixer or a whisk or a spoon. And what I've done is separated that out so that I have half pink, just with a little bit of red food coloring, and I left 1/2 of it white. And then to ice them, you can use an icing spatula or a knife, or what I've done is just to take a couple of regular old plastic bags, Ziploc bags, and spoon the icing into the bag, and then cut a little corner off, just a very fine little tip so that you have a little frosting tip, and then just curl your fingers, wrap your fingers around it, apply a little bit of pressure, and you can ice them however you want. Get the kids icing them, do red and white, mix them together, but you've got a real nice little chocolate chip Valentine's Day cookie there. Enjoy.
Good morning, church family. I thought I'd take a moment to record a song that I wrote several years ago. It's called God's Country, and the title may be a little misleading. The theme really has nothing to do with a particular physical place. It really has everything to do with where we find ourselves with God in a moment of prayer, which can, of course, be any place. So this is God's Country. With each setting sun, there is the dawn of heaven's blush. And I am always humbled by the magic in my maker's brush. Though the course of time is often drawn in desperate hues, every day His Majesty remains to tell the news. Ooh, this is God's country. Wherever you go, He's waiting. This is God's country. Whatever you need can be found here in God's country. Wherever you are, He is watching. Just close your eyes. In flight from old perspective, I can see your grand design. face to face with a gentle grace. I am thankful for what's mine. These are gifts you've offered, life beyond my own and more. So I will look ahead to all that lies behind your open door. Ooh. This is God's country. Wherever you go, He is waiting. This is God's country. Whatever you need can be found here in God's country. Wherever you are, He is watching. Just close your eyes and you're there in His hands. Though it's hard to understand all the things He can do, close your eyes and He'll be there with you. This is God's country. Wherever you go, He is waiting. This is God's country. Whatever you need can be found here in God's country. Wherever you are, He is watching. Just close your eyes. See you next time.
We are the Stallmans, Tom and Marge. We've been married 65 years.
And a half.
Well, marriage occurred in Phelps, New York, Western New York, in June of 1955, after I graduated from the Naval Academy. But dialing way back to when we first met, that was August of 1952. I was home on leave in Rochester, New York, my hometown, on summer leave after my first year at the academy. And my best high school buddy, Joe, he went to the Coast Guard Academy and he was home on summer leave too. And I got a note from him. I don't remember exactly how, that come on over today and we'll mess around. So I walked over to his house. We were in decent walking distance. And so I walked in there and immediately, of course, I knew Joe. And also I recognized Betty, his high school and continuing girlfriend. But there was another young lady in attendance that I didn't know. And it turned out to be Marjorie Fairman. Now, I was, that was sort of a surprise blind date and foisted on me. So how did this come about?
Well, there's a whole lot of stuff that came ahead of that he wasn't aware of at the time. I was in nurses training with my friend Betty. And I said, boy, I would like to meet somebody really smart, smarter than I am. And she said, I know just the guy, Tom Stallman. You'll probably marry him. So it was a put up job that he was going to be at Joe's house when Betty and I went there. And there you have it. That's how we met. And we spent most of the rest of his leave seeing each other every day, going picnicking and wandering around and canoeing on the Genesee River and going out to dinner.
Yeah, Joe and I both put on our white uniforms and took them to dinner one evening. So that's how it got started.
And he had no idea.
Hello friends, it's your friendly neighborhood priest, Father Nick, and I am absolutely delighted to be part of this fundraiser. So I'm not going to show you a talent because that would imply that I'm good at it. This is just something I really enjoy doing. And it's actually something that I learned about when I lived here in Alexandria when I was in seminary. So I'm going to teach you about the Gaelic sport called hurley. And hurley, even if you haven't heard of it, is actually the oldest continuously played sport in the world. It's actually over 2,000 years old and is played all over Ireland currently, and they are very, very fond of it there. And one interesting thing, something that draws me to it, is it's a very humble sort of sport. You won't see names on jerseys. Numbers determine where you are in the field rather than determining who the individual is. And then no one's paid. If you want to play for County Cork, you have to live in County Cork and you have to have a day job. So they're all about humility and all about sportsmanship. It's a great sport. So first, let's go over our equipment. This is a hurley. It's a stick. I've got two of them. This is a traditional wooden one, and you can see it's gotten a lot of use and it's broken. So I bought the synthetic one so it won't break quite as easily. And then so the ball in hurley is called a schlitter. This is not a schlitter. This is our dog Vanilla Bean's favorite toy. It's an oversized tennis ball. So, but a schlitter is about the size of a standard baseball. But where the crease is, the leather's folded out rather than in. So you have some creases to help the ball balance on the hurley. All right, and then something that's recent to the sport is you have to wear one of these helmets. It's like a lightweight lacrosse helmet. And it's got the cage on the front. And then because I'm wearing glasses, I'm not gonna wear it right now. But this is pretty much standard issue. So when you're playing hurley, there's 15 players on each team. So it's a lot of people on the field. It's called the fastest sport on grass. And then generally someone's only holding the schlitter, the ball, for a few seconds, but those few seconds are extremely intense. So in this video, I'm going to teach you some basic ground rules on how to get started in playing hurley. So here we go. Don't pick up the ball with your hand. Knock it into your hand with your stick. You can run with the ball while the ball is balancing on the flat of the blade. Look at me go. Nice hit. You can put the ball back in your hand, take 4 steps before continuing running. Good job, Nick. When you want to hit the schlitter, keep your right hand on the bottom of the stick. Look at it go. Well, wasn't that fun? So hurley is a fun game, and then there's a lot more rules. So the goal is an H-frame post, and then if you get the ball over the post, that's 1 point. And if you get it below the post, that's called a score, which is worth 3 points. And yeah, it's a really fun game, and if you ever want to play, we can pass it around. All right, friends, God bless you, and I'll see you around church.
Hello friends from St. Luke's. My name's Charlie Hazard. This is my boat Music Maker, a 31-foot sloop, and we're offering a 4-hour sail to the largest donation for the St. Luke's coronavirus relief fund. So if you're interested in spending 4 hours on the Potomac River at a mutually agreed to date in spring or summer, then please make a donation to a very worthy cause. And I'll be happy to take you out on the boat, 4 hours on the Potomac, teach you a little bit about sailing, and enjoy the beauty of the Potomac. Thank you so much for supporting St. Luke's coronavirus relief effort. Really appreciate it.
Buttermilk cheese biscuits. Just right for a cold winter day, especially for something like Valentine's Day, which is a great little holiday to celebrate with wonderful food. My name is Suzanne Reynolds, and I'm a parishioner at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. And today we're going to learn to make buttermilk cheese biscuits, which are really pretty easy and there's a lot of fun. And if you have pent-up aggressions, it's a great way to get out those pent-up aggressions because you're going to beat the tar out of the dough. The ingredients are fairly straightforward. It calls for 2.5 cups of self-rising flour, 1/2 cup of butter, which is like 1 stick, cold, and you want to cube that so that it's in small pieces when it's added. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and then approximately 1/2 to 3/4 cups of grated sharp cheddar cheese. You can buy that already done if you want to, but I like to do it myself. And approximately 1.5 cups of chilled buttermilk. And the amount of buttermilk is really going to be determined by the humidity and the dryness all within the flour and so forth. You may have to add a little bit more, it depends. You want to make a sort of a soft dough. Some people like to actually get their hands in there and rub the dough, the flour and the butter between their fingers and kind of work it down into smaller pieces that way. I don't like to do that mainly because I don't want the dough to get heated. I want to keep it cold so that the butter doesn't really melt. This takes a little bit of elbow grease, but again, if you're getting tired of being at home with the pandemic, this is a good way to get some of that energy and some of that frustration out. And now I'm going to add the shredded cheese, the grated cheese, sharp cheddar. And now I'm going to add the buttermilk. You can buy this at almost any grocery store. And the amount of buttermilk you add really does depend on how dry it is and how quickly it gets assimilated in with the rest of the dry ingredients. So now I'm turning this dough out onto my pastry cloth. I floured it pretty well because it is, as I said earlier, a soft dough, which translates to being a little sticky, but that's okay. And this is the part where you're going to beat the tar out of it. Okay, now I've got heavily floured the pastry cloth, and also you roll the rolling pin into it to be sure that has some on it. Now what you're going to do is you're going to really massage this pretty heavily. And the idea is that you want to make layers in the dough. Now we've rolled and we've massaged it quite a bit, gotten a lot of those aggressions out, and I'm using the rolling pin on a floured pastry cloth to roll it out. The thickness that you roll it depends on how thick you like your biscuits. My mother liked very thin biscuits, so she rolled it pretty thin, but I like a little thicker, a little more chew to it. So I usually roll it about maybe 1/2 inch. And I'm using a flour cutter, and I'm just going to go around. I like to start around the edges. And the oven is preheated to 475 degrees. You need a nice hot oven for this. And you notice I said to you we were going to touch them slightly so they're going to rise up together. I'm putting them in. It takes somewhere between 12 and 15 minutes for the biscuits to be baked enough. Okay, the time has come and now is. And I'm going to pull these beauties out of the oven. Oh my goodness, there is nothing as wonderful as hot cheese biscuits. As my aunt used to say, take 2 and butter them while they're hot.
But because Jonathan went from being the macho Marine groom to being a high school teacher of English after the honeymoon, I mean, immediately we came to Alexandria and he was teaching English. So we didn't have any money. And we lived in a fishing cottage on the river for $65 a month, which right on the Potomac.
It was 500 square feet.
Not near St. Luke's. So we had to make do. And I didn't go to work in those days. That wasn't always the rush thing to do, but we did did move when we had a baby into Holland Hall. But when he was working and we decided to go to school at night, I discovered and spent most of my life making do. And it was too expensive to have child minding. I didn't have any ambitious thoughts. So while he was going to graduate school and getting degrees and then going to seminary, I was at home making do. And we had a lot of fun adventures that didn't cost anything, like finding a farmhouse down in the Northern Neck on the water that had a deserted farmhouse, no water, no electricity. And it was a family adventure. We had a lot of fun. So we learned to make fun and have adventures and to laugh and have a good time. And from the beginning, when we discovered when we had cross ideas, we'll work it out. And that sort of became our motto, was
Work it out. Yep.
we're still working it out.
And
So far, so good.
find consensus somewhere. Well, and I guess maybe that leads then into the question of, how did we actually find ourselves and manage to stay together? And, of course, I was quite surprised about this surprise blind date. But I found this nice young lady very easy to talk to, and not, not high flying, not a snotty, snooty type person. And we found things in our background. We both, of course, went to school in New York State, took the same kind of state exams and other things that were somewhat, similar, that we got us sort of started talking easily. But so I think we just very soon became comfortable with each other. Sound like you're
Yeah. And when he went back to the academy, he started writing letters to me every week. And as time went on, because we knew that, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. We weren't even talking about marriage or anything, but as time went on, he wrote more and more often until he was writing every day. And I wrote as often as he did. I let him be the guide of how often we were going to write. He set the pace of that.
Hi, my name is Kathy Lehner, and this is my friend Yolanda Thompson. We met about 4 years ago when Yolanda was the director of the Creekside Community Center and the Creekside Village Apartments on Janilee Avenue in Mount Vernon. I was an after-school volunteer. We also had an overlapping universe at Riverside Elementary School, where her children were students, and she was a parent volunteer, and where I continued to work. Last March, when the pandemic hit and the schools closed and the economy shut down, I was very worried about my students, their families, and the families I knew in the Buckman Loop area of Mount Vernon. I wasn't sure what to do, but I knew if I reached out to Yolanda, we could come up with something.
And that something was a weekly distribution of school supplies. And quickly we realized parents were asking, do you have diapers? Do you have food? And so school supplies and puzzles and games turned into diapers and food and more essential things. And here almost a year later, with Kathy and other volunteers in her community and around this community, we are still distributing on a weekly basis diapers and food. And I didn't know how I could do this because I couldn't do this alone. But Kathy and me came up with this solution. And now weekly, I'm able to take care of these families because they are still out of jobs. They're losing jobs. Some that started with jobs are losing jobs. They're getting sick with this virus. Their children are overwhelmed. This community is overwhelmed. But thanks to Kathy and other volunteers, they get a little break. They get a little peace because they know that they can take care of themselves with hygiene products, household items, diapers and food, and so much more. And we're so grateful that we have Kathy and her community taking care of us in the midst of troubling times. We're finding peace and joy and hope.
So thankfully, all these months later, my friends and family are still delivering diapers to my doorstep, either via Amazon or Costco or Walmart, or just having gone shopping and leaving them right there on the bench for us. I don't know how much longer we're going to be in this mess, but I'm sure glad that Yolanda and I have figured out a way to support families and provide them the dignity that they deserve.
So if you can, please support our efforts because they are much needed. And this doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We always laughed about the little ditty that Ogden Nash said.
Oh, yeah.
So you do the first part.
To keep the love light burning with love in the loving cup.
Whenever you're wrong, admit it. Whenever you're right, shut up.
My name is Cameron Wilds, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as one of the pastors here at Rising Hope, a United Methodist Mission Church. I came on at Rising Hope in the summer of 2020 to work alongside the Reverend Dr. Carrie Concannon, the founding pastor of Rising Hope, who this past year celebrated 25 years of faithful service to the Route 1, Mount Vernon, and Fort Hunt area. Prior to coming to Rising Hope, I served a church that was, ironically, 10 minutes away from your new rector, Father Nicholas Hall. During our time together in Martinsville, Virginia, we were highly active together in ministry, and I can't wait to share in that same experience here between St. Luke's Episcopal and Rising Hope Mission Church. During the last year, COVID-19 has hit low-income communities particularly hard. As a church, we have always prided ourselves in being able to build relationships with the least, the last, the lonely, and the left out. A critical part of that relationship building is the necessity of personal contact, warm greetings, and smiling faces. As you all know, with social distancing, mask wearing, and the very real risk of passing on this virus from one person to another, we have had to change the way we interact with our community. But nevertheless, we continue to serve because we have such generous community partners who help keep us going. Community partners like you, St. Luke's Episcopal Church, and all of those persons of the Mount Vernon and Fort Hunt area who support amazing programs like the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Through the support of this fund, many communities like ours are able to experience the gift of joy through being able to provide simple acts of kindness and generosity to others. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Rising Hope was at one point providing nearly 1,500 hot lunches per week to our community. We were also serving nearly 350 families per week through our food pantry. Last month alone, through the food pantry, we served 451 families, totaling 1,414 people. With the looming threat of evictions and bills piling up for persons who have lost income or experienced a reduction of work hours, Rising Hope has also continued to be a part of the community by offering emergency services and has continued to provide basic necessities for persons in our community that are experiencing homelessness. And lastly, because of our community partners, we were able to provide during the Christmas season 800 children with Christmas gifts this year. You see, this COVID-19 pandemic has caused stress, anxiety, and fear within our communities, especially amongst those who are the most vulnerable. But it has also shown us that as a community, we can join together to invoke positive change amongst our friends who live among us. This season has shown us that we can be resilient in the face of despair. So on behalf of Rising Hope, we say thank you to the good people of St. Luke's Episcopal Church and to all who support us and the fabulous ministry of the Coronavirus Relief Fund. I can't wait, and I look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
Hello, this is Scott Solak. I'd like to play for you one of the German composer Robert Schumann's loveliest and most tender compositions. This is called Träumerei, and it means dreaming. Happy Valentine's Day.
So we started testing out the durability of our marriage. And I might add that, as it turns out, I would throw out a couple of words like fidelity and reliability and stuff like that as being necessary ingredients, and also some degree of forbearance with things the other party might do that annoyed you. So anyway,
I have no idea what he's talking about.